Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is July 2nd, 2026, a Thursday before the incredible America 250 weekend. I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel today. I'll jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Yay! So it's the first time I'm back since the beginning of the month. So excited to talk about just American independence, Independence Day, and so much more with the news. But first, on the first time I come up on the month, we have the wonderful, of course, great announcement of the winners of the folks who get randomly selected, who are supporters of the channel, who get to receive a bottle of the C60 Evo caps. That's c60evo.com/YAFTV, where I offer 10% off on the incredible ESS 60 products to anybody watching the videos, and 15% off to people who donate to the channel. And so this month's winner are Kind Eyes. Kind Eyes is the name of this person, been a regular supporter of the channel for quite a while. Congratulations. And also Margaret. Congratulations, Margaret. And such great, wonderful comments from you over time and the support. So thank you so much, and enjoy these capsules. I'd love to hear back from you as far as how they work for you, the incredible uptick in focus and mood, downtick in inflammation and tiredness, and all the other incredible benefits for your central nervous system, fighting anything to do with cellular degeneration, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that. And then I want to say thank you so much to Lana for the donation since the last video, and to everybody supporting monthly. And Lana, thank you for the kind words that you always give. It's so appreciative. I take it right to heart. And to everybody who comments and supports monthly, supporting the channel, especially now here in this incredible 250 moment. I'm just so excited. And as I often do, coming up to the 4th of July. And the reason today, the 2nd, is so important, because this actually is the day that the Declaration of Independence was ratified. They waited to the 4th for interesting reasons that nobody's, they kind of claimed, some administrative reasons, but I'll get to that in a moment as to interesting theories around why the 4th over the 2nd was chosen. But first, as I often do with Independence Day coming up, I want to read part of what is, of course, the preamble here, and a few paragraphs of this unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. And so let's just jump in. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. I get chills when I read that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers for the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And it goes on, of course, from there famously. And if you don't have a copy, you certainly need to get one, and keep it close to you. I used to be able to give away these on the channel. I love this, just the little Citizens Rule Handbook, where it has the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, etc., and just some other great documents from back in Jefferson's writings and all of that, some of the Federalist writings in there. So Yeah, anyway, so this is what we're dealing with, the creation of freedom, the freest country in the world, by the people who had the courage to do so and put their name on that document, which was massive, right? And you had your John Hancock writing it, the largest kind of pirate industrious guy at that time, who these people expected they would be beheaded and killed if they failed in this endeavor to have this revolution to create the United States of America and to separate from England, from the kingdom. And so huge, huge, huge as we go forward. And as I referred to earlier, July 2nd was the actual day that it was ratified. And so the 250th anniversary technically would be today. And it's interesting because this waiting until the 4th, you know, a lot of people have speculated as why. There was one scholar, her name was Matilda Jocelyn Gage, and she was kind of the third originator of the women's suffrage movement, along with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And but she was much more organized and sort of had a broader vision of women's rights at the time, to basically that they would have greater access to the professions and education, and also economic rights within marriage, as well as property ownership rights, etc. And so she kind of got pushed to the side by Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, who wanted to just only focus on the vote. And however, her papers were at Radcliffe College, which is the women's arm of Harvard. At the time, it was the Women's School of Harvard. And of course, now it's called the Radcliffe Institute. However, her papers are still there in the library, magnificent, incredible library, where she dove into sort of the esoteric adherence to a lot of the founding fathers and especially the Masonic branches, and how there was all of this incredible sort of connection to astrology, and something about the 4th being the best day to actually declare the independence for its effectiveness and its astrologically empowered way to move forward. So it's just very interesting to talk about these histories, because we see that, of course, presidents and across, you know, throughout the world, this adherence to these kind of esoteric principles. And it's also interesting to note that this 250th anniversary in Philadelphia, the astrological sort of reading of this time is almost exact to how it was in 1776. All the aspects are the same. And of course, this is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where it was written. And so this is kind of, again, a very special time period where we're seeing huge, huge revolutionary energy and awakening, and the ability for people to sort of see beyond the lies, to move forward in action, and to basically take back their rights. So it is it's an incredible time period, and I'm just so excited about it. I hope you are too. I hope you have great barbecues planned, parades, and it's also a great time to recommit to volunteer. And I want to take action over the weekend here. If you're feeling that awakening, you're feeling that forthrightness to get more involved. The volunteering would be such a great way to expand your community, and it's needed more than ever before the terms. And I wanted to emphasize that how important it is that we get out and do these things. And there's so many ways to do it, whether it is the Precinct Project. That I'm always talking about, the precinctproject.com, theprecinctproject.com, Election Integrity Network. There is, of course, the tab USA below, where they list so many empty or unchallenged smaller local government roles and offices that you could just put yourself in there and take hold of. We're going to be needing, of course, coming up for the midterms, we're going to be needing poll watchers, election workers, And of course, also just volunteering for your local candidates and your state's candidates is so, so vital. Getting out there on the phone banks and the door knocking and the lawn signs and just all of it. So I want to put that out there again, and because this is a great weekend to commit to that, to recommit to that, and also, we don't want to forget about the phone calls, right? We want to be calling 202-224-3121 to your senator, and 2321 for Thune, and to follow up on President Trump's call to fire the parliamentarian. Okay, so that the SAVE Act can get through when they come back after this nice long July 4th holiday that they're getting. That basically, I don't think they come back till the 18th. They're going to be pushing to get like Jay Clayton to get Bill Pulte out of the DNI as soon as possible, because he's declassing all of this stuff. We're seeing the John Brennan, kind of a slapback lawsuit to protect his, to try to not have them be able to access his documents. And I'll talk about that here in the video. But basically, we need that parliamentarian gone, because if they don't get the SAVE Act up first thing when they get back, then it's likely it won't even be able to be implemented before the election, the 2026 midterms, and that's what needs to happen. So I just wanted to emphasize that again, as I often do, because we're seeing they're going to be spending huge amounts of money, and just remember that the RNC is now a corporation. Okay, it's not a party. Okay, it is a corporation, and JD Vance is kind of the equivalent of the CFO of that, and now they're deciding to put up a huge kind of presidential election level convention in Dallas, Texas, right after the primary ends, so like second week of September. And they're going to be having this massive convention in Dallas. And yes, there's huge races against Tallarico, and there's important stuff. But that money that they already waste so heavily going in to pay for a huge convention that will cost tens of millions of dollars, that is needed in these massive elections that we have coming up, critical to keeping the Senate and defeating the steal of the House, is so, so important. And so questioning Vance's role in this, all of this to do with the endless waste of the money as people struggle to just get by, just pay the bills, just to survive. And so as sure as the sun rises, I think we will see them try, if they win the House, and if they won the House and the Senate, you can, beyond the impeaching, okay, because I don't necessarily think that would be successful. I think they will try to change the Constitution, and make it so that a non-U.S. citizen can become president. Now, we already know that Barack Obama was the first non-U.S. citizen to become president, right? But at the same time, as he was, as his CIA father was faking his credentials at Columbia University, his father was also installing Mamdani's father at Columbia University to teach socialism, to teach Islamism, but to very much, push socialism through Columbia University, which is at the epicenter where we're seeing the DSA candidate come out there in New York City. And Mamdani, of course, I believe is who they really, truly intend to try to put in as the 2028 candidate, likely with someone like AOC as a vice president to appeal to the, she used to be the radical squad. Now she's almost the, mainstream, Democrat that's surviving. And so this is what I think, and that's why we have to work so hard to prevent that from happening. And so, we keep hearing about a national elections emergency that Trump is preparing for, and why they are freaking out about, that you've got the White House task force on election crimes with John Solomon digging out all of the deep intelligence documents, working with Pulte out of DNI, who's right at this moment has access to everything that he can get his hands on, to get all of this out with the espionage cases. Okay, whether this espionage, election espionage, criminal cases, first time in history in the United States, happening in Florida in Southern District of New York. And so what we know is that Thune and all the other treasonous senators for entertainment purposes only out there, the first thing they want to do when they get back is get Jay Clayton, who was the chief counsel to Alibaba, right, to the CCP machine, or the Asian machine, where we're getting. He was the guy who left Sullivan Cromwell, the total top of the oldest, richest law firms, to get an IPO for Alibaba in the USA's capital markets. Okay, and of course he. Didn't do much heavy lifting when he was down there in SDNY, when we should know so much more should have advanced with criminal prosecutions. And so they want to get him in as DNI, and Pulte out as quickly as possible, because Pulte, is firing, he's declassifying, and he's working through, nonstop. And so we're seeing John Brennan coming out, ex-CIA Muslim Brotherhood Brennan, dual citizen of Ireland. Ireland now set to take the presidency of the EU, stationed there. And so John Brennan, basically, he now has filed a lawsuit. And very interesting, this comes at the same time as Hillary Clinton is hair on fire, screaming about what's going on with Pulte and what she knows behind the scenes of what's going on to reveal the criminality of the 2020 election steal. And so his lawsuit is to preserve documents versus the DOJ. Basically, they can't declassify them, that the DOJ must keep these documents preserved, even as he's being prosecuted in Southern Florida. And so this is all happening here. And if with anybody we want to confirm, it's Jim McDonald in the Southern District of New York as the U.S. attorney there, because that's the most important thing that we need. And so HRC comes out and basically just, commits, does these insurrectionist statements, seditious, absolutely, where she's on TV, her podcast, she's just out there saying that she wants the staff, she wants the workers, the federal workers in the intelligence communities to withhold documents, to slow roll them, to basically wait out until Pulte's, forced out by the confirmation of Jay Clayton. Because remember, it's a uniparty. They're all in it together, left or right, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what's going on in that situation, and it's amazing. They can just come out and say these things, HRC still, because she knows that she would be rolled up, obviously, in these criminal, these espionage and domestic election crimes that have gone down. And, as we're watching this DSA takeover, we need to understand that, that this DSA just means communist, fascist, Islamist. And while they put all these Islamist candidates in, they are 85% white, educated people, okay? And these candidates are coming out of the what they've done over the last dozen years, plus, 40, 50, 60 years, but massively radically, pre-Obama forward in the radicalization of the education, et cetera, et cetera. And so that has been taught so hard that the people now that are in charge of it are the graduates of these universities that have been so heavily indoctrinated in these policies of communism. And so we've got this going on. And this, DSA was really took off about 40 years ago. And again, it came out of Harvard and, the Kennedy Institute, all of it. And it was really Barbara Ehrenreich's baby. She was kind of hugely the face of it. And Barbara Ehrenreich, professor at Harvard, et cetera, author of many books. And it was her son very much in charge of the Harvard aspect of DSA. And you had, all of the, all of the Ivy League schools and et cetera. And then they'd send all of their minions up to New York to hold big rallies and marches. And this was considered the educated, less less, people they look down upon, basically, which was like the ISO, the International Socialist Organization. That was really for the workers. And so it's only about 4% of people actually who are members of DSA that are actually blue collar identified. And it's 85% white intellectual college people. And it's also, I think it's only about 9% then Hispanic or Latino, and like 5% Black. It's like a tiny, tiny minority of people that are actual people of color, as they like to say. And so there you go. So very interesting as we're watching Trump actually go forward with what is the actual completion of American Revolution and his Donroe Doctrine to basically claw back the financial control out of the British Empire, being the name of the Bank Street elite of the cartel Babylon, city of London, where we're seeing everything in the Western Hemisphere being sucked back under U.S. financial economic policy control. And the Iran thing continues, of course, but huge with the Western Hemisphere, and I'll get back into that in a moment. But it was very interesting to look at. I was listening to Susan Kokinda earlier this morning, and she was talking about that this midterm isn't that this isn't a midterm coming up. It's a final exam, basically, that we have to actually pass it. We have to stop what is coming. And we had, of course, Clarence Thomas, and this was Barbara Boyd's point on this. Clarence Thomas, who wrote The Dissent, to do with the birthright citizenship, where he's explaining that America is not a feudalist society, and that the whole point of the 14th Amendment was to declare free citizens, not subjects of a commonwealth. And that is the difference, that it's not that that a ruling class is claiming you as a subject, which would normally happen under feudalism. It is that America represents a free society where people come to be part of America, okay, not to be subjects of a state that, of course, just receive the benefits of the state. So it really was an excellent dissent, and I'll see if I can actually link that below for you. And so as we move forward here and we look at what's coming, we just have so much work in front of us as we continue. We continue with this big fight here on Independence Day, and we're seeing how Trump, Besson, Jameson Greer, Peter Navarro, etc., creating this economic strategy for the Western Hemisphere, while Canada is going full bore with the EU and basically saying all Canadians are going to be slaves. We're just going to steal everything. What they did to America, we're going to now do to Canada whole hog, but we're going also full bore, net zero, stealing your energy, your right to life, your everything you can have. We're going to give it all to the machine of the EU. We're going to give them everything they need so they can build weapons, they can attack Russia, that they can carry off this attempt to bury themselves, basically in what they're now doing with their fiat currency, what they're now doing, allowing Europe to go into debt, allowing it to loan against the future and the descendants of Europeans, which they hope there won't be any. And that's what that's what Carney is saying, is that he is now basically aligning Canada fully with Europe and the City of London, and that they're going to give them everything they need of resources. And it's very, very sad for Canadians, and we pray that they can fight harder against their evil government. And so, looking more into this situation with the Donroe Doctrine here in the Western Hemisphere outside of Canada, and the expiration of what was the USMCA, we're looking at Trump going to the Caribbean and South America, some kind of the Argentina model, where basically he's having the USA pay off the IMF loans, the City of London, Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, all of those instruments used to capture and keep loyalties and fealty to the dominion of the UK and City of London to the globalist cartel Babylon. He's going and paying off those IMF loans and reinstalling American loans to these countries, Argentina, and then huge and others, South American countries, and also hugely in the Caribbean. And we're seeing that what's happening with that is moving allegiance to the United States of America and being able to pay off those loans in rare earth minerals, and also in exchange for that, either removing or hugely, massively reducing tariffs in connection to these countries, and treating them as sovereign nations, and also lowering taxes for what's happening with corporations that want to do business there, or especially in the rare earths and the other minerals and resources needed to do the technology build out, which of course I am massively, it's just we're going through this period where there's going to be a huge shift, obviously, in this next generation of technology, and it's very frightening. And I almost could and wish to just be a Luddite, because it is just terrifying, the technocracy that can come out of this. However, that aside, we have this incredible shift in removing the control of the U.S. being the military enforcer for the City of London cartel Babylon globalist bankster foreign elite, and taking control back from them and having a more even partnership with other countries, and also creating a Western hemispheric blockade against the CCP. It's also CCP loans, because that was the Belt and Road Initiative. That was the creation of the CCP owning everything, and bringing it closer and closer and closer to our shores, not to mention invading from within, and the 1.5 birthright citizen babies that are now 1.5 million Chinese. And so this is all of the moving of the doctrine to reclaim Western hemispheric power, with the USA, of course, at the center of it, but dealing with sovereign nations, and taking Europe out of the picture, and the City of London and the CCP. Massive, Panama Canal, okay, going after the choke points and the waterways. And we're also seeing, Trump was yesterday at the dedication of the library for Theodore Roosevelt there in North Dakota, in Maduro, and beautiful, the Rough Riders, escorting him in, riding on their horses. Quite amazing to see this kind of cavalry type, lead in of him into the library area. And he basically was saying, he just as, you had Roosevelt in the building of the Panama Canal, now it's being reclaimed, okay, after it was given away for $1, after, hundreds of thousands of deaths from malaria and the building of it and the dangers of American blood, sweat, and tears, now reclaimed, okay, for America. 100 years later, we get the situation of him also saying, Cuba, we had, Theodore Roosevelt going, and what were the, what was it, the San Juan or San, I don't have it in my mind, but basically the fights in Cuba, when there was driving the Spanish out of Cuba, and this whole situation, this reclaiming of Cuba that's happening, and the huge things that are shifting in Cuba, that is going to make it economically able to free the people, okay, and change it into what likely will be largely a massive tourist destination, as well as so much else. And so in this whole Caribbean sphere, we're looking at what is the controlling the cartels. That's why the Caribbean blowing up of all of the drug boats is going on, the cutting off of the cartels from controlling the politicians, the policies, the et cetera of the Caribbean, and contributing to, with all the offshore banks and all of the havens there across the Caribbean, the laundered money. The laundered money connected with drug money, trafficking money from South America and Mexico that goes overseas and goes to Ukraine. And the cartels have been moving hugely over to Europe. And so we're seeing this whole situation of cutting them off of the Western Hemisphere. And it's a huge thing. Okay, it's huge. It's massive. All right, they can't control the politicians. The politicians can't get their money from them, meaning they can't control the policies, meaning they have to become real, a real body politic again, and actually have policies for the people. And stopping this, this oligarchical steal of everything from the citizens. So it is huge and it is exciting. And so we're praying that that it continues on, and that as we celebrate this weekend, that we just pray. We pray for what is a massive, massive undertaking that's never happened really since. Um, there was the save of the country of the Civil War, but we haven't seen this large, since the steal. It's been the steal for a while, and it looks like my recording has just paused, and I don't know why, but hopefully I'm just going to keep talking. We saw the steal, of course, that happened on steroids after World War II, and that was a huge achievement for the International, the European International, globalist, fascist, communist, elite banksters, right? And the destruction, step by step, of America since then on steroids, even though, of course, it had been happening, step by step with the creation of the Fed, et cetera. But what we're seeing with Trump and his team to wrench power and back from these globalist bankster elites is unprecedented, and something that should be massively celebrated. And so I'm not going to go much further today. I hope you are going to America250.org and seeing what's happening in your area. I love seeing some of what's going on with the tall ships and the Naval Brigade through Hudson Bay there, and what's going on in New York City. That's beautiful to behold. It is incredible celebrations going across. And when we see horrendous, the horribleness of things like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and Maura Healey, the disgusting socialist pay-for-play governor that they have there, that I'm still wondering if they're going to try to toss her in for 2028. You have Mayor Wu of Boston, who was raising the Somali flag yesterday for Somali Independence Day, but won't be celebrating Boston. Okay, we're talking Boston Tea Party, Paul Revere, Sybil Ludington. The Redcoats are coming. That start the shot heard around the world, and basically the creation of this country. They aren't celebrating. It is sick. It's disgusting. It's absolutely just horrifying. They have managed to have things like, I think there's going to be a huge America 250 block party going on, and there's still other people, but the people in charge are total traitors to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They're now pushing Vineyard Wind, the offshore wind that they settled on. Basically, they settled contracts on what, the taxpayer money that would be stolen to. This is, just think Vineyard Wind, okay? Think Barack Hussein Obama, and think of his $8 million mansion on Martha's Vineyard, where they wanted something like 1,000 wind turbines between Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Cape Cod, and Newport, Rhode Island. They've already have 300 of them up. Half of them don't work. They're falling into the ocean, polluting it. And also it creates massive EMF destruction, okay, for the sea life, but for all the people around, and not to mention the birds. It is an absolute horror show, these offshore wind projects. And now You have Maura Healey going in to steal more money after they had already settled the contracts, to say, now you can renegotiate your contract and get more money for these failing, basically banned by Trump, offshore wind projects. So, and this is Vineyard Wind. Okay, and this was hugely just payoff money that's going to pay all of the operatives that got this through. And so, we watched this, and Massachusetts wouldn't even send, Healy would not send a contingent to the national fair, okay, in DC, the Great American States Fair celebration. Would not send a Massachusetts delegation to have their own room and presentation there, and you have like a woman named Donna, okay, who just was like, screw that, and she's like went to DC, is like setting up her like card tables, her folding tables to represent Massachusetts. I mean, it's just so sick and disgusting that that we could have a state like Massachusetts not be participating after, if you look at 50 years ago, 1976, huge, massive, huge, beautiful celebrations across Massachusetts and across the country that have gone on to now be faced with this only 50 years later. So that's why we're here, to basically fight back the destruction of our country, and we are going to win. We are going to win. We are winning, and we're on the upward trajectory. So take this time this weekend and celebrate. Take the time out and celebrate, and really reflect on what that freedom means to you. Get out there with people. And if you don't have people, a lot of people don't have people, volunteer. Go volunteer, and that's how you meet people. Okay, volunteer. Service is, there's that saying, when you get nervous, focus on service, right? If you're feeling alone at this celebration, it is so huge, and it's kind of like, at Christmas when people can be depressed if they're alone. Get out there and volunteer at something that's going on near you, and be a part of, and it will help. And volunteer for these midterm positions that there's so many of. And I also, we're dealing with, I'll just mention this here before, I'm going to talk more about this next week, but because I covered it in my last video, I did want to mention this situation of this Ukraine-based sort of cartel Babylon mercenary army that's becoming clearer and clearer, that it's used globally, worldwide, for these mercenary attacks. We did have in Germany, I think it was today, they prosecuted another Ukrainian responsible for the Nord Stream 2 being blown up, right? As Biden said, it will be blown up, first thing when he became fake president. And then it was a couple of weeks later. Yeah, it was the Ukrainians, obviously, but we have this mercenary army that's working worldwide, right? And it is coming out, from it seems, it's getting more and more public that this is operational, whether it is the money laundering through the scam operations, or it is this team of digital, attack warriors that are going in to capture the minds and hearts of teenagers, to get them involved in these evil, awful movements online, and to recruit them as violent individuals in their, interconnected with the intelligence services of various countries like Ukraine. It looks like also England, United States, and I'm sure across Europe. So this is being exposed, and it is very, very important that we look more into it, because Charlie Kirk can't be here to celebrate America 250. It's really, really awful. That's one thing that, I pray for him, that he is, of course, celebrating. And we know that wherever he is, there's some celebrating going on. But here we are, facing all of this this random chaos and terror from this group, just as the bioweapons, etc., located in Ukraine. And of course, there was a huge Russian, supposedly, attack on Ukraine that happened in Kiev overnight, and lots of people killed. And we just can never trust any of the information coming out of Ukraine, so we don't really know what happened. So I'm going to leave it here on this note to also, can we pray over the weekend for the people suffering in Venezuela. Pray for the return of the children. Pray for the location of the children. That children are going missing after they're being found and supposedly kept for the parents, and then they're not there anymore. So we're praying for that, for the safety of these children and the stopping of the evil. And we're also praying for the people still captured in the, of course, demolished buildings. There's a lot of them that are still alive, and we're praying for their rescue. There's international teams from all over, from the United States and abroad, and let's pray that those people who are still alive under the rubble get rescued, and ASAP, and prayers for that. So we're all in it together, and as the masked people right from the top of the Empire State Building that they can't talk enough about the last couple days on the mainstream media, their sign, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace, right, is what they put on their big flag up there. And at this time, that's what we want more than anything. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Next week, I'm going to be getting into action points around the Save Our Bacon Act. We need to stop this in the upcoming farm bill. That's going to be being pushed fast because they know so many people are on to them about the Save Our Bacon Act. There's a couple other really bad things in the farm bill, but this is about getting awful tortured animal meat from the CCP and other awful countries where they're just animals grown in these factory farm situations that are just awful, disgusting. And then the meat is absolutely filled with toxins, pumped with all kinds of chemicals and dyes and bleach and just everything horrifying under the sun to totally undercut, of course, the humane farming of animals here in the United States. And of course, the farmers up in arms about it here in the US, as they're already dealing with all of the foreign beef. Now this gets largely into pork, and it's of course awful. So we're going to be talking more about that. I might link that below so you can get a look on it as we get forward to acting on it after the holiday. And in the meantime, please enjoy. Happy birthday, America. Thank goodness we made it this far. We made it to 250, and I think we're going to launch forward, and we have a big fight ahead of us. So get some R&R, get some celebration, some happiness, some joy, and loved ones. And just, I hope that you have an incredible 4th of July. And thanks so much for, sticking with the channel all these years, going on 10 years with this channel. It's amazing. And even though I've been able to break through the massive barricade, it makes me know that I'm telling the truth, why there is so much shadow banning and just absolute shutout of this channel as I've, tried to get back up here since the, the squashing and the debanking and all of it. So I appreciate those of you who really stick with it. And, I just wish you happy America 250. We made it. And yes, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? And may we all have our unalienable rights forever forward in the incredible country that is America. So you are free. And I will see you after the weekend. Celebrate.